Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan show. Thanks for joining the conversation. First of all, tell me your name and your age.
My name is Aemon, and I'm 9 years old.
9 years old. Kind of like what that sign says. Can you tell me a little bit about this sign?
So the sign, I made it because, like I get it, and I'm 9. because just because a lot of people don't really understand what's happening right now in our country, and the fact that I'm 9 is kind of should tell them, hey, get it together.
That's right, get it together, exactly. So you and I were at the protest together on June 14, which was so awesome that you joined me. High five, that was fun. Tell me why you decided to go, and obviously you get it, and we're going to talk about what it is in a second, but why did you decide to go, other than also your parents were there? But that's not why you went.
Well, the reason I went is because I wanted to help make there be a difference in our country. Mainly, that protest was just for no kings and no ice, just because I just want to make a difference.
Yeah, that was really, really brave of you, actually. Can you tell me from a 9-year-old perspective, because I'm just a little older than 9. I don't know if you know that, but I'm just a little bit older than 9. But what do you know about ICE? What do you know? What do you think that is?
I think that ICE is people would be taken away from their family, basically just being kidnapped. He would go into a Home Depot or something and steal people from their families.
So yeah, we see a lot of that happening, and there's all this confusing reasons of why, and it's really unfortunate because you're right. We actually have a Wallam family member that had one of their families taken, and so it really is heartbreaking and sad to see when families are ripped apart. You wouldn't want to be separated from your family, right? That would be terrible. Can you tell me what it felt like to be there at the protest?
I felt very hopeful, and that at least this part of our nation, it gave me some hope in our country.
Yeah, so you keep saying our country, and because you were born here in Florida, right? And you're only 9, so most 9-year-olds are playing on their phones, or because I think 9-year-olds actually have phones, or on the computer or watching YouTube or something. But you have been saying things I want to make a difference in my country, and I think that's really cool. As a 9-year-old, your job is to kind of go to school and be a kid. Do you also think about when you're older, your parents' age, or do you just go, nope, I'm 9 and I'm just gonna be 9 right now?
I do really think about when I get older, because you never know what I'm going to be doing. I could completely change our country, but you never know, so I always think about it.
You do think about it. Wow. Do you think it's whoa, I'll be really old at that time? I understand. When I was your age, I thought my parents' age. Wow, that's so old. I'll never get to that age. But you're right. It's important for you to show up to do things now, because it will affect when you're older, right, and what you're doing. And you and I, we got to talk kind of at the protest as we were hanging out, and also after. And I asked you if you explained to your friends at school, hey, I went to this protest and here's why, and you told me you did. Can you kind of share again with me the reasons you would explain to your friends that maybe don't understand why you say I'm 9 and I get it? What is the it part? What do you get? What do you tell them? Here's why I did it, and here's what I want to be different.
What I want to be different is people to just understand that Trump and a whole list of other people aren't doing anything for us, and in fact they're making everything worse. And there could be a whole list of things that they have done wrong.
Name one of the things you feel that's not right, that we want to be different.
First thing that comes to mind is probably racism.
Mm-hmm.
Because just looking at a person who is almost exactly the same as you, but has a different color of skin or talks different, doesn't mean that you have to treat them differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so smart. I wish more people were 9 and would get it, because that's exactly right. When you were at the protest, you said it felt hopeful. Were you scared at all?
At first, I was scared because I heard about the news and stuff. But then once I got there, I was like, okay, I feel safe because I'm surrounded by people who, like, agree with me and are, like, very safe.
Yeah, I felt really safe. I felt the same way. Like, at first I was like, oh gosh. I was a little bit apprehensive because I said, well, man, there's going to be so many people there. And like you said, whenever there's news that starts to share, like, things that are happening that's challenging, or that there's violence and things like that, you have to be careful and you have to be cautious. But this wasn't your first protest. Do you remember the first protest you were at?
The first protest I think it might have been the gun control one.
It was the gun control one. That's right. You were really, really small then, and you were holding up a sign. Do you remember what the sign said? I think it said Nerf or nothing, which meant like Nerf guns are the only guns, right? Well, do you know much about what the gun control situation is like? But do you know why you went to that protest? Because you were pretty young then. I don't know that you said, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to go to the protest. Like this time you kind of said you wanted to go. Do you know about the gun control situation?
Well, I don't know like the history behind it, but
Yeah.
like I do know that gun control should be happening.
Yeah.
Cause like no ordinary person should like have a gun in their hand that can just kill a person if they want to, because that's like it's just like makes everyone around you scared of you.
Yeah, and you know that in Florida that there's been shootings, right? You've heard about those. When you're in school, do you have to do active shooter training? Is that scary?
I mean, like most of the time, like if you really think about it, like and you're in a drill, you're like, what if this actually happened? And then it is really scary.
Yeah, I bet it's really scary. Do your friends feel the same way? Do you talk to them about it?
But we're not really allowed to talk, but they don't. They usually are just like laughing while it's happening. So I tell them it's like it could actually happen in real life, and they should know the procedure.
Yeah, that's very smart of you. I would want to know the procedure too, and obviously being safe is the best thing. So I just want you to know, though, I've known you since you were born, so like a long time, 9 whole years, almost 10. And it's been really cool to be able to protest with you, to be able to train with you, and see you grow up. You're almost taller than me by now, which is kind of, I gotta sit up really tall because you're gonna be taller than me before you know it. But what would you say to your peers, meaning what would you say to other kids your age that don't understand what a protest is, or maybe want to learn more? How would you encourage them to be as brave as you are, or also to get involved?
I would say to them, like, a protest isn't about going there with the sign, looking cool. It's all about, like, just being there and making a difference. You don't even have to have a sign or anything, because as long as you are there, people know that you are on like the side that they agree on. And if there is enough people, it will almost like probably make a difference.
Yeah. Do you know how many people went in Orlando?
No, but I wish I did.
I think I heard, and it was throughout the day, not just when we were there, but I heard there was over 10,000. Yeah, and there was like several across Central Florida. But do you know how many in the world? Because did you know also people from Europe went too? Yeah. Remember when Aemon and I went to Europe together. Remember we were in Norway and Amsterdam. Remember when we were in Amsterdam? People in Amsterdam also stood with us because they really believe that there should be no kings in America, and they want to see the America that you and I are hopeful for, with justice and equality. And so there was over 12 million people across the world that stood up on June 14th together. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It was cool because it was all at the same time. Also, a lot of them were at the same time. Isn't that kind of cool to feel like, whoa, people from all over the world were doing this?
Yeah, it's like, it's weird to think that people from another country, like, come to us to also make a difference, even though it's not really their problem.
That's right.
So, yeah,
That's pretty cool. And you know what's interesting though, Amen, and you're right, it's not really their problem. They have their own problems. Everybody has their own problems in their own country, but we're all fellow humans, right? And so I really love that you care about that. Are there any other thoughts you have that you can share as to what makes you feel like you want to make a difference? Like, I love that obviously your parents have taught you and let you understand what's happening in the news, and that you've seen some of the families being torn apart, and that you've seen some things with gun violence, and it's really scary as a kid. But are there other thoughts that you have as to, like, hey, you know, me, Eamon, I get it, and I'm 9. The others, we'll say idiots, because you know it's like if you're 9 and you get it, right? But what are other things that, in summary, that you would say, like, here's why I was really glad I protested?
I was really glad I protested because, well, just like a bunch of people getting together and like just like fighting back, even though the Democrats lost, doesn't mean that like they have to stop. Like, it's really cool to think, even though like they didn't technically win, they're still pushing and trying to make people change their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the people who are kind of idiots, they can be changed. Like, I think there might be a website called like formermaga.com or something like that.
Okay.
And like it's all the people who like used to be a Republican and now they're like sharing their stories, and it's really cool to think that these people who were on our side can change because of what we're doing.
Yeah. That's 1000% right. Thank you so much. I'm learning from you, actually. I didn't know about that website, so thanks for sharing. We'll look it up and I'll put it in the notes so that people can follow. Is there anything else you want to share?
Not really.
Awesome. Will you be at the next protest?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Thank you so much, Eamon, for sharing today and for being brave and for going to protest and for letting me know what 9-year-olds think. Basically, that a lot of us adults are idiots. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Good job. Bye, everybody. Hi. Can you tell me your name and your age for our listeners?
Jett Dang,
And how old are you?
10,
You're 10. So what does that mean? What grade are you going into this year?
4th going 5th.
4th going to 5th. Ooh, that's very cool. That's elementary school. Well, I'm so happy to talk to you today. You are in Portland, right?
Mhm.
I am in Florida, where it's like 1,000 degrees. Okay, not 1,000, but it's very hot. Is it hot where you're at?
Not today, it was that Monday and Tuesday.
It
And
was
it will
Monday,
be,
Tuesday.
and it will be next week.
Okay, well, enjoy the not today hot then, because it's pretty warm here. But I wanted to talk to you because your dad shared pictures of you at the protest on June 14.
Yeah.
Very cool. I was also at the protest, but here in Orlando, and you were at the protest in Portland. Can you tell me what it was like at the protest in Portland?
I saw a lot of people.
Yeah, like how many? Hundreds?
No, I don't think. Maybe like 300 about.
Wow, okay. And what were they doing?
They were holding up signs that said like no kings or we don't want Nazis in the courtroom.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, those are good. And you had a sign also, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
What did your sign say?
Mine said you can't talk about what's illegal when you voted for a felon.
Okay. Wow. Do you know what all that means?
I know what illegal and felon means.
Okay, can you share your definition so I can learn from you?
Well, illegal means it's against the law and it's not legal. And
Mm-hmm.
then felon means like you are someone who breaks the law and is not a rule follower.
Okay, yeah, not a rule follower. Can you tell me a little bit about why you were at the protest, other than that your parents were there? Because I know your parents were there, but also I know that I've talked to you before on a lot of things going on in the world, and you've shared stuff with me that makes me believe you wanted to be at the protest. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, why did you want to be there?
Because I don't like Trump.
Why not?
Because he is not a very good president, and he put tariffs on our allies.
Yeah, can you tell me what all that means? Because I'm sure a lot of your 10-year-old friends maybe don't even know what tariffs or allies mean. How would you explain that to your friends that
Well,
don't know?
like allies is the opposite of your enemy, your friend. And then
Hmm.
tariffs are these things you put on other countries that are usually your enemies so that your country stops buying the things that they are producing.
Wow, thank you for that. I love doing these conversations because I get to learn from the people I talk to all the time. It doesn't matter how old they are. So even though you're 10 and I'm just a little bit older than 10, thank you. I'm actually learning a lot from you. Are there other reasons that you feel that the current president is not a good president or that you don't like him?
Well, because it seems that he doesn't really care about like lower class and middle class. He only cares about like the billionaires and millionaires.
Okay. And when you say like doesn't care, do you mean that he makes rules or do you mean that he says things that are bad or what do you mean by doesn't care?
Well, I mean that it's not that, well, sometimes he does something bad or against them, but usually he just makes rules implying that he likes the upper class better than middle class and lower class.
Yeah. And do you know how, again, if you can share and explain to me what it means to show up at a protest? Like, do you know what protests are for?
For trying to convey that you want something to change.
Yeah, yeah. So do you feel like by showing up that you are part of change?
A little bit.
A little bit. What did it feel like when you were there? Were you scared? Were you excited? Were you
I was
tired?
excited. I was
You were
excited
excited. You were excited? Why were you excited?
because I had one of my friends.
With you?
hmm
Okay. And what did you guys do at the protest?
We held up a sign and we showed at the drivers,
Uh-huh.
and the drivers would honk in approval or give us the middle finger in disapproval.
Ooh. Okay. I hope you got more honks versus middle fingers.
Or honks. I only got one middle finger.
Only one middle finger. Okay. Well, you know what? Not everybody sees things the same way, right? And this is the thing. Hopefully, when people drive by and they see you out there, especially because you're so young, it gets them really excited. I don't know if you know this, but people who are a little bit older and much older usually get very energized by seeing young people like yourself. Were there a lot of other kids at the protest, or were you guys kind of?
I only saw three. Me, I only saw me, my friend Thomas, and Thomas's friend, I forgot his name.
That's okay. And do you feel it's would be good for more young kids like your age to go to protests?
Well, it would make it better because sometimes instead of seeing a bunch of their of adults seeing a bunch of their peers protesting, seeing the little kids would make them maybe have a change of heart.
Yeah, I think so too. I was super excited to see kids where I was at. And then when your dad shared pictures of you and your friend there, I was super excited because when I see young people going out and using their energy and showing up for protests, it's very inspiring. How would you encourage other kids or your friends to kind of go? Like, what would you tell them and why they should go?
I'd say that if you go to a protest, like if they were a Kamala Harris supporter, maybe your sign could make someone realize like, oh yeah, maybe Trump did do this, and maybe he's not a very good president.
Yeah. What kind of signs did you see other than the one you said no kings and the one you had? Was there a favorite one you saw while you were out there that day?
Well, there was a guy named Mr. John was holding up a sign with Trump sitting there with like a Nazi thing on his arm, and on the other side there were a bunch of quotes from every from very good presidents, and other like civil rights activists. So like I saw an FDR quote, a JFK quote, a I saw a couple of Trump quotes which I didn't really appreciate. And I saw some other civil rights activists.
Okay. Oh, there's so much there that I need you to educate my listeners on. So can you tell me what you know about Nazis?
Well, the Nazis, I know that they were very harsh on Jewish people. I know that they tried to rule the world, and I knew that they were not
They're very
merciful.
merciless.
They were
Yeah.
merciless.
Yes, 100%. I agree with all of that. And can you tell me a little bit about civil rights?
Well, civil rights, like the white people when they came to America, it seemed that they all along had civil rights because they were always treated respect, whereas black and colored people were not. So they would protest for their civil rights, which was rights to like drink in the same water fountain, go to the same restaurants, use the same toilets, eat at the same places.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, can you imagine if there were restaurants that they said, I'm sorry, Jett, you're Vietnamese, you can't eat here, how that would feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that part of why you feel like you want to stand up for civil rights? Because you know what you would feel badly if that were you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Can you also share with me a little bit about all of those quotes and whose quotes you saw, or who are those presidents and all these different
Well,
people? Did you know who they were before reading them, or did you learn about it with Mr. John?
I knew who Trump was because he's the current president.
Yes.
I knew who Abraham Lincoln was because he wrote the Gettysburg Address, and I kind of like that. I knew
Okay.
I know Ronald Reagan as someone who was, I think, in the Cold War, Cold
Mm-hmm.
War,
The Cold
and then
War. Uh-huh.
I know him from that and being like kind of calling the Russians like the a something something. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot.
Mm-hmm. Those so the Russians were kind of the enemy during the Cold War.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I knew JFK, John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So because I remember he said, we're gonna get to the he was the president that died before we got to the moon, but his goal was to get to the moon.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I know that you like history, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, were you happy that you went to the protest
I was happy after the fact.
after the fact? Were you not happy going because it was like, oh man, I'm gonna be outside all day,
I was tired though.
tired? Yeah. You know what? I was really tired that day too. I taught a lot of classes for like 6 hours and I was sweating here and I go, oh gosh, I have to go out in the sun and stand outside. And then I was like, no, this is important. I want to go. And then when I went, I was like energized. Just being around everybody got me really happy. And so you said you were tired and then, but after the fact, you were really happy. Why were you happy after?
Because I got free food.
Awesome. Were you would you go to another protest?
Mhm.
Yeah, why?
Because it just feels fun, like protesting with everyone, knowing that it might not make a difference, but there's a strong possibility it could.
Yeah, do you know how many people protested around the world together?
Mm,
A lot. Did you know people not in America, like in Europe, also protested for no kings in America?
yeah.
Yeah, isn't that cool that we were also standing up with people from around the world together at the same time? That was pretty cool, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard there was almost like 12 million people protesting.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if the numbers are 100% correct, but that's what I read. And I thought, wow, that is so amazing because how many people do you think? I mean, I'm not actually asking you for a number, but do you think it's a lot of people that also were really tired that day that maybe was like, I can't go to the protest, but I still believe in the cause and I really also don't want any kings in America? Do you think there were a lot of people that didn't show up, but also are thinking the same way or that are like minded?
Yeah, probably like 2 or 3 million.
Yeah, I think so.
Some people can't afford to get a sign, but just their presence there could make a difference.
That's right. So would you say that it's important for other people to also show up if there's more protests and more opportunity to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with me about how you felt there, or if there's anything interesting other than meeting Mr. John that from that experience?
I have a picture of Mr. John.
Okay, cool. Well,
Hi.
I think I'll take a look at it. Was this your first protest?
No.
No. What was the one that you did before this?
I
one.
went to a Black Lives Matter protest when I was like 4 or 5, I think.
And Amy, do you remember it or not so much?
The only thing I remember was like a white guy coming up and like kind of like giving a thumbs down and holding up a sign that said "All Lives Matter."
I see. And is that kind of like the people that gave the middle finger versus the honking, right? There's like an opposition kind of guy. Yeah.
At this one, I saw a lady that says that said "Go Trump,"
Oh, okay.
and she
Yeah.
also Trump.
Not everyone's going to agree, right? Do you have anything to say? Like, if you were to get a chance to tell people who don't agree, is there something that you would say to try to get them to agree?
If Trump has been president for like 4 3/4 of a year now, he should at least know that every person is should be treated equal.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for talking to me today and sharing your experience. I hope that if you go to another protest, you let me know how it goes, okay? All right. Thanks so much, Jett. I hope you have a good evening over in Portland.
Bye.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/Sifu Mimi Chan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.